What's up, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day. For those of you who are coming back to watch this over again, welcome in. And for those of you who are about to join here any minute, then what we're going to do today is the same thing we did yesterday. Except today, I've got juniors, Adventure Juniors and Tradition Juniors. So I went ahead and cut the Corby screw heads off. So now we're just going to get them flushed up and finish them. Turn this vacuum on, and we're gonna run it. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Rock Lobster, Steven. What's up, Gabe? No, you're not late, buddy. Yes, sir. Doing the good work. The messy work. them three. don't go anywhere yet. What's up, everybody? I'm Jake with Very Good Knife Company. If you're new to the channel, welcome in. If you guys like watching this kind of content, do me a favor and hit that like button for me. It really helps me out. So, today we're working on finishing up Adventure Juniors. That's what this is. And Tradition Juniors. That's what this is. Now, both those ones that I just showed you are Gen 3s. These guys have the removable screws. They're going to get taken apart after being finished. And then I'm going to Cerakote them. But the rest of them just look like this. Gen 2, Corby screws. Nice 400 grit finish. Almost. We got to go all the way around on the spine. And we got to finish our sides. Then we'll hit them with the router. So, that is all for the roughing in process. Don't go anywhere. We're going to turn this camera around. Alright, let's turn this camera around and go to the other grinder. Switch that vacuum plate over. 120 grit on the big wheel. And what we're doing, see that right now they're real rough. Go. Much better. Nice and uniform. So we got all the way up to here. And we're going to have to get the rest of that with the small wheel. But we'll go ahead and do the rest of these just like I did this one. Sides first, and then the spine all the way around. Let's do it. This is burgundy canvas micarta on a Tradition Junior. The blue, we're going to take it from looking like this. To looking like this. Nice and clean. See the difference here, the scratches are going this way. That's because we had it on the flat platen with the belt going this direction to rough it all out. Now we're taking it from looking like this. Happens pretty quick. hit that like button for me, guys. more. What's up, David Gray? That's my least favorite part. It's so tedious. I can't stand it. One more. Now, we'll run them the same way on a 220 grit. And we'll take them from looking like this. See the pin, see the rough one. To this. Getting cleaner. So there's 120. There's 220. What's up, John? There's 220. See that spine really starting to shine up. Looking good. I'll run the rest of them. more? Alright. Alright. Don't scroll yet. What's up, Barlow Brigade? Alright. So now, that's all for the big wheel and the 220. That side. Now I'm going to switch to the small wheel. Alright. So, up underneath here, you can see where it is finished at 220. Scratches are all going this way. The finish is going this way. Up here, we still got that rough 60 grit. That's going this way. But for the small wheel, we're going to take that out. It happens really quick. Go, just like that. And you can see the difference between the 220 down here and the 120. We'll take it to 220 next. First, we're going to run through all of them. Like that. Make them pretty. for the 120 entirely. What's up, Jeff? You got some rain? We haven't got any down here yet. Maybe it'll hit us later this evening. We need rain. Bad. Alright, 220. This happens real fast. Like that. I'm gonna run them all. Now, okie doke. Turn that fan off. Woo. That went pretty quick. What's up, everybody? I'm Jacob with Very Good Knife Company. If you're new in here, welcome in. And if you've been here a while, well, I'm happy to have all of you. So now we are done with the 220 entirely. That's the end of the 220. Everything from here on out will be 400 and Scotch-Brite. But before we do that, see the radius on the face of the handle? We got to do that to the whole handle, all the way around. And that's the tool that we're going to use to do it. This is just a regular old router. And I need to set my depth right, because right now it's a little too shallow. I want it to cut deeper. There we go. Now, we're just going to run all of these handles around this router. Show you what it looks like. That is all there is to that. You can see perfectly uniform, even on both sides. Now this router bit is smaller than the one that I was using yesterday. This is the one that I was using yesterday. This is a 1/4 inch radius. The one that I'm using now is a 3/16. You can see the radius is smaller on this. That's because I use 3/16 thick micarta on these smaller knives, and then on the bigger stuff I use 1/4 inch micarta. See how much thinner the handle is on this one. That is the difference between the 1/4 inch and the 3/16 round over. Now, that's pretty much a finished knife. We'll do just a little bit more cleanup after they're all done. Let's go ahead and run them all through the router first. All right. Don't go anywhere yet, because the best is yet to come. And I mean it. What's up, everybody? For those of you who are new in here, I'm Jake with the Very Good Knife Company. You've stumbled into me having a knife finishing session. We've just got through finished putting the radius on the handles. See if we can get it to focus. There we go. Now you can see the radius. Nice and pretty and clean. Hey, let's see if we can hit that like button and get to 100 likes on this live stream. And if you're new in here and you enjoy this content, want to see more of it, hit that subscribe. And if you really like the live streams, hit the notification bell. Let you know when I'm going live again. Which, on a normal basis, without Blade Show and post-Blade Show, I am live just about every day. As much as I can possibly do it. So, we'll go ahead and go to the bench now and take apart our two Gen 3s. Nope, that's not it. This one. These guys are going to get Cerakoted, but they've got to get taken apart first, and I'll show you how I do that. Let me spray these screw heads real good. Sounds like the seal in this one quit. I'm going to have to take it apart. It won't shut up now. What's up, Bubba? Garrett. All right. Now, these guys over here got finished yesterday. That's an Adventure. That one's got black handles as well. Same for this Rambler. But they are Gen 3s. So we're just going to take them apart and put our handles aside and our blades aside. And that way, when I'm ready to do all the Cerakote, I can just blast them, clean them, and coat them. All right, now these guys will just pop right off, just like that. And you can see, nice and clean. And the way you know you got a good fit is when you put, let's just put the our posts in. We won't screw them all together, but we'll put our posts in. And attach our handles. And the way we know we got a nice good fit is the fit is 100% flush, no gaps, no light shining through there anywhere. And that's without screws clamping it down. That's just dry stuck on there. All right, and see, they'll just come right back off. But that is about as clean of a fit as you can get. And all that's left to do to these is to blast them in Cerakote. Now, it didn't take them to the Scotch-Brite or even the 400 grit. There's just no reason, because we're going to bead blast them. Plus, I want them just a little more rough. That way, when I do bead blast it and rough it up even more, the Cerakote will stick a little better. So there's our scales. These will get bead blasted as well, inside and out. They'll have a nice rough texture. Now these screws are black still. These ones have just been blasted. You can see they're black around the whole screw, but just the head that was exposed got blasted with another knife. Now these are just my mock-up screws, and they've been on a whole bunch of knives. And I just use them to fit it all together. And then when the knife is finished, the Cerakote is done, and I'm ready to put it together for the final time, then I will put some brand new screws in them, because these screws, well, it's going to be hard to see, but they do have some scratches, and I don't want any of that. I just want a nice clean finish. So there's our Adventure Junior. Looks just like all the other ones, except it has different screws. They come apart and they get Cerakoted and put back together. There we go. All right, so now, what's up, Dr. Rakesh? Now we're going to turn the rest of them into this. It's just got some oil dripping down it. And this is a Generation 2 standard 400 grit finish. That's what the rest of these are going to get turned into right now. So let's do it. The way we do that is the same way we've been doing it this whole time. Now, Gen 3s, anything that's getting Cerakoted is going to stop at 220. Now we're going to pitch that 220 aside and drop in a 400 grit. This is the final finish, and then they will get a surface conditioning belt. A Scotch-Brite belt ran over them after this. And what that does is just kind of blend the surface. Anything else that's just kind of left clinging on there, grit, or sometimes you get some belt thread. Where did my mask go? Got it. All right. Here we go. 400 grit, Scotch-Brite. Final finish. That one could have gotten tightened up a little more. Here we go. Right? Now it's time for Scotch-Brite. The number one reason why I do it this way, and why I always do 400 grit last, is because when I run it around the router, the guide wheel up top will always leave a little scratch right down the middle. Always. It always does. And it's kind of hard to see, but you can kind of see it there. The Scotch-Brite, most of the time, will take it off, but sometimes it won't take it off. And if it doesn't take it off, then you just got to go back to the 400 grit anyway. So even if they don't need it, it's better to just run it. Just makes it cleaner. All right, Scotch-Brite, that's next. Last and final step. for the underside. Then we'll switch to the big wheel. Nice and shiny now. Oh boy. Take care, Steven. Looking good. That's all for the underside. Now we'll get the rest of the knife with the big wheel. That is all for the small wheel for these knives. And we will finish on the big wheel after Scotch-Brite with sharpening. All right. Here we go. We'll get the sides, just like always. Get our sides real good. Fine all the way around. And then the handle shoulders. Just like that. Go ahead and do them all. Oh, forgot the shoulders here. There you go. Almost done. Two more. Last one. All right, time for Scotch-Brite, the last step. And these knives will be finished, minus sharpening and, of course, laser engraving. But this is the final step. We'll just go ahead and run Scotch-Brite over everything we just touched with that 400. Over the side. All the way around the spine. Now, the last step is to hit the bevels. Since we already have the round wheel on, we'll go ahead and do these hollow grinds, and then I'll have to switch to the flat platen to Scotch-Brite, the flat grinds. No big deal. There we go. That's pretty much a finished knife. Just needs to be cleaned up real good. Pretty nice. Once over the sides. All the way around the spine. We go on the underbelly spine. Smooth those shoulders out one more time. Brighten up the bevel. That good old Scotch-Brite. Beauty. And for the flat grinds, I'm going to wait until they're all done, then we'll go to the other machine. Almost done. Then we'll look at some knives. One more. All right. Now, we will continue this step on the other machine. Go ahead and turn you around. I'm actually going to swap out the rest plate for the free plate. And all we're going to do is clean up our bevels. Those last 6 Adventure Juniors, though, are flat grind instead of a hollow grind. So for that, we change to a flat backing plate. Last step. We take them from looking like this, which is pretty good, but I think you'll agree that that is much better. Nice and shiny, but still a satin. Not a polish, just a satin. High grit satin. Pretty good looking, right? What's up, everybody? If you're new in here, I'm Jacob, Very Good Knife Company. You've stumbled into me finishing up some knives today. If you guys like this content, hit that thumbs up for me. It really helps me out. And if you enjoy watching this, hit that subscribe. If you enjoy it enough to want to watch more live streams, hit the notification bell on the channel to let you know when I go live, which is quite often. That is the last step for this knife. Scotch-Brite on the bevels. That's a finished knife, minus the sharpening. Beauty. we've done, and a little bit about what I did yesterday, which was the same process. What's up, Larry? How's it going, bud? Alrighty. So, that is a wrap on those. Now we'll go put some oil on them. I like them to be cleaned with WD-40. The WD-40 will get up underneath all those dust particles on the surface and lift it off without me having to wipe it off and scratch that nice, beautiful finish that we just put on them. So I'm going to scoot all these knives over that I finished up yesterday. I'm just going to scoot them over a little, make some more room on our towels here, and start putting out some knives. Now, what I've got here in my left hand, these are Adventure Juniors. Junior as in the smaller version of OCD. The smaller version of the full-size Adventure, which I have some sitting right here. So we'll definitely take a look at those. But for now, we're going to soak them real good in WD-40. Get up underneath all that surface junk. Let it sit there for a minute, and then I'll wipe them clean. Now, the only thing left to do to these knives at this point is to sharpen them, and then sheath them, and laser engrave. So real simple. The next step is going to be to sharpen them, and I'll do that once they're all clean. I don't think that I'm going to get to a sharpening session today, but I will have a good sharpening session with all of these knives. Let's back the camera up a little. So yesterday I finished up the Ramblers and full-size Adventures, all of these right here. This is what they look like. Beauty, flat grind. This is actually a flat saber grind. Pretty sweet. That's the gnat. Here is the green. Beauty. And then I have a black. Beauty. We've got a blue. Now this blue is a little darker than this new sheet of 3/16 blue that I just got. See, this blue is still dark blue. It's blue, but it's not the same kind of blue as that new 3/16 blue. You can see the slight difference. And that's just the way it goes. Sometimes the sheets are darker. I've had some sheets that were plenty blue, but they were so dark, once they started to age, they just kind of turned black. Not really much of a blue anymore. And my oldest daughter, Jovi, she has a blue Rambler. It's identical to this one. It's ADC RV2, just like this, and it's got the blue. Hers is a darker blue. That whole sheet that hers came from was a darker blue, and it's like a darker, it's almost black now. And she carries it every day, and she loves it. And Miss VGKC has one of these. This is the burgundy ADC RV2 Rambler. My kids and my wife and I all have Ramblers. That's the knife that I chose to teach them how to use and take care of a knife. So they all got one. Jovi's got a blue one. Emma has got a red one. Autumn has a black one. And Remington, our boy, has got a gnat one. And then I have a dark green one. It's not this color green. It's this color green actually, the dark green. Those handles right there, those scales are for this knife. This is an Adventure ADCR V2, and it's going to get bronze Cerakote. Hence why the handles are taken off of it. So what I do with the Cerakoted ones, that's the Gen 3, is I attach them with removable screws. There's a green Adventure. I attach the handles with the removable screws. I finish the knife, and then I take it apart, coat the blade, and then just stick it back together. Pretty simple. Here's a black Adventure. Now this is the full-size Adventure. Here in just a second, I'll show you that next to the Adventure Junior, which is pretty identical. They're almost identical. Just one is a downscaled version. That would be the Junior. It's just slightly downscaled. So the Adventure is 3/16. That's what it is standard. 3/16 stock. It's a thick blade. It's a very thick blade. And I actually just recently started making more of them in 5/32. This one's a Gen 3. It's been Cerakoted. This one is what this Gen 3 is going to look like. It's going to have these green handles, just like that. And it is going to have the bronze Cerakote. It's going to be a maker's copy. That's what he wanted, was a maker's copy. So bronze Cerakote and that dark green. But this one is actually 5/32 stock, which is just slightly thinner than the 3/16. And I've made a couple of them in the past. I have a customer who requested a couple of them. He's bought two over time, and he really likes it. He does have some of the 3/16 ones as well, but he requested a 5/32, and I never told anybody about it. I just didn't have any real intentions to vary from the 3/16. Well, then Gabe at Last Huntsman, he got an Adventure in 5/32. He also has one in 3/16, but he got one in 5/32, and I played with it for a minute, and he convinced me that I need to do more in 5/32. So I made one for myself and Miss VGKC, and I've made a few since then, and I will be doing some runs of them in 5/32. But I'm not gonna lie, I love the 3/16. So this is the Adventure Junior. The biggest difference between these two, aside from them being one obviously is smaller, the Junior is smaller, but the biggest difference, because I mean the blade is very, very close in length, if not just, I mean, it's only about an 1/8 to 3/16 inch shorter on the Junior, and it is narrower by about 1/4 of an inch. But the biggest difference in these two is thickness. The full-size Adventure here is 3/16 stock with 1/4 inch handles. This one, the Junior, is 1/8 inch stock with 3/16 handles. So it's quite a bit slimmer. The handle is about 1/2 inch shorter, and the blade is about 1/4 to 3/16. 3/16 to 1/4 shorter. So the whole thing is about 3/4 of an inch shorter, but the biggest difference is the thickness and the weight, of course, along with that thickness. So these Juniors, you still get a full 4-finger grip. That's choking way up on it, and I can choke way back, and I still, see, look at there. I got a ton of room up front. I got a whole other finger up front. I can choke way back and still get all my fingers on there. But it's so slim, it'll fit right down into your pocket too. It's a great pocket dropper. The Adventure has got a very full, that's choking way up on it. Not so much uncomfortable choke up, but that's as far as I would want to choke up on it. It still leaves me 3/4 of an inch to an inch of handle. However, on a very relaxed, wide finger grip, you can see I still get all of that handle. And this one fills the hand out quite a bit more, being thicker and slightly wider. And of course, this one is going to be twice as durable as the Junior. That being said, nobody to my knowledge has broken one just by goofing off or really of any issue at all. These are plenty strong. I mean, plenty strong. But of course, anything with that massive amount of thickness is going to be even stouter. So these, even though they're real thick, they are ground down to about 18 thousandths at the edge. After putting an edge on, they will be right at about 20 to 22 thousandths behind the edge, which is perfect for a knife with this kind of size and thickness. You don't want too dainty of an edge with something that massive of a spine, because you run the risk of leveraging and breaking the blade or chipping at the edge, because you've got no flex up here. So the edge would definitely have to match some of that thickness. But for as thick of a knife as it is, and with that real wide blade, I'm able to taper it down really thin. And that's about as thin as a duty knife really needs to be. So I've got one of each color in the Ramblers, plus a all black Gen 3. And then I've got one of each color in the Adventures, plus an all black Gen 3. I've got one of each color in the Junior Adventure Juniors, plus a all black Gen 3. That is the red. This is an awesome color. Here is that blue that I was telling you is just a slightly more blue than the other thicker sheet that I have. You can see the difference side by side. This is definitely blue still, but look at the color difference. This is a lot brighter, and I really just don't have any control over it. I get what I'm able to get. So like I said, sometimes they come extra blue, sometimes they come dark blue. And I kind of like it both ways. I would feel like it's too much blue on something bigger. Maybe that's just me. So I'm not crazy about blue, I guess. It is one of my more favorite color. I like it more than red. I'm just not a red fan. This is the black Adventure Junior. And we've got a green one. So my Carta colors are nat green, black, blue, red, and purple, burgundy. Nat green, black, blue, red, and burgundy. Those are the 6 colors that I am normally running. Every now and then I'll do something different. Like I did get another big sheet of the Macecraft double green micarta. That's this stuff right here. It is a beautiful green and quite a bit different than this green. A lot different. See, this is a double green, so it's a double color, and this is just a regular green. And fun fact, the burgundy micarta is actually red. It's just a double red. That's pretty neat. It's just a double red. So, green, double green, and then red, double red. Pretty cool, right? And there is a double black as well. I do still have a little, and it's just more black. So like in the regular black, it's hard to tell, but you can still see some of that whitish, lighter colored canvas material in there. This is all layered canvas. On the double black, it's just super black. You can't really see much canvas at all. And the last one that I've got, this last model that I have, one of each color, nat green, black, blue, red, and burgundy, is the Tradition Junior. This is the hottest model. It is the hottest model that I have made yet. every time I make them, they are gone. They sell. They almost never sit around. In fact, I don't think I've ever had one sit around. And they're very, very highly requested. So I make a lot of them on the side for orders. This is the Tradition Junior. And like the Adventure Junior, it is, yes, sir. That wasn't too long. So the Adventure Junior and Tradition Junior are almost identical in size. They are essentially identical in size. The 1/8 inch stock 3/16 handles. The handles are pretty much the same length. The blade is almost identical. The biggest difference is one is hollow ground. The Tradition Junior is hollow ground, and the Adventure Junior is flat ground. Now, this is also a downscaled version of a full-size model named the Tradition. Bet you couldn't sniff that one out. Anyway, I don't have a Tradition sitting right here. But the Tradition and the Adventure are almost identical in size. The Tradition uses 5/32 stock, while the Adventure uses 3/16. But the handles and the blades, just like the Juniors, are pretty much identical in size. And just like the difference between the Adventure Junior and the Tradition Junior, this is hollow ground. Same with the full-size Tradition. The Adventure and the Adventure Junior are flat ground. I might have, sometimes I watch all of his videos and sometimes he rambles, and I love watching his videos, but like I told him, I'll get like halfway through it and then something will happen and I'll just, it's gone. And I do that, not just him, I do that with a bunch of people, especially that make the longer videos like me. I'm pretty bad about that, and I don't watch my own stuff most of the time. Sometimes the missus will put it on the TV and I'll play through, but sometimes. Yes, he does. But I was watching, I was just talking to him the other day ago too. I was watching his video on Pro Cut, and yeah, I kind of feel the same way about that as I do the Magna Cut, but I mean, that's a deep subject to get sucked into. That's a rabbit hole. Anyway, there's that beautiful blue Tradition Junior. So as far as like hollow grind versus flat grind for me, if you know what you're going to put your knife through, if you know you're going to need that little extra toughness, then you've probably already picked that flat grind anyway. That's me. I'm abusive with my knives. I do things with them that I probably shouldn't do, but I test them a bit unfairly because I've always had the mindset of, well, if I break it, I can make another. And maybe that's not the best place to be, but at the same time, I mean, I got to test them too. I need to know. Here is the green Tradition Junior. Pretty hot color for these. Yeah, that's it. The stock versus the grind. So, like I was talking about with the Adventure just a minute ago, even though it's got that 3/16 stock, I bring it down to a thinner edge. And the geometry on the 3/16 with that wide blade is going to be a little different than a 5/32. So I would be able to get the 5/32 a little thinner at the edge more safely. Now, if it makes any sense to anybody, because I've argued this fact a couple of times with people over the years. If you've got a really thick stock and you grind it really thin, like way thin, thinner than this, this is only about 18 thousandths. So, I mean, that's really not all that thin. Considering nowadays, if you're not grinding to 5 thousandths or less and have a Rockwell hardness of 89, then you ain't shit anymore, I guess. That's just the world that we've evolved into. But If you go really thin on the edge with a really thick spine, then you can, it's going to be easier to break that edge. And that might get argued, but the thing is, if the spine has no give or flex to it, but the edge does, meaning a thinner edge, then you're going to have a like a secondary weak point a little bit farther behind the edge. And that translates down even farther when you have things like a thin hollow grind. So if you look at the structure, like a cross section of a good thin hollow grind, it's going to be about that same thickness as it is behind the edge, all the way up into about here. At least mine are. They're thin, and so that right there is a stress point. And if you now it's going to be weaker at the edge than it is everywhere else. Obviously, that's the thinnest part. It's dumb to think that it's going to be weaker anywhere else other than the edge. The thing with the hollow grinds is if they're done wrong, then sometimes they will be thinner way behind the edge, like up into the lower third or the middle part of the grind. They'll be thinner in here than they will down at the edge. So then you could do what I do with mine, which is somewhat of a semi-hollow grind. And a semi-hollow grind is where I bring the cheek of the grind up higher, and I will end up flattening out this section from here on down into here, where it's not like a let's get a little bit of a drawing going here, right? Well, let me see if I can't find my damn pen. I lost it. It's gone. Okay. So, oh, there it is, right here in front of me. All right, so a true hollow grind, right? A true hollow grind is going to be completely round all the way, right? So you have this dilemma where, let's just do our blade stock. Let's accentuate it a lot, make it real thick. All right, we got our blade stock, okay? Now, with the hollow grind, the bigger you go with the hollow grind wheel, the bigger you go with the contact wheel, the bigger this curve is going to be, right? So the smaller you go with the contact wheel, the smaller the curve is going to be. I don't feel like I need to go too much in depth with that because you guys will understand. But, so what'll happen is if you try and grind a real tall grind, like a deep hollow grind, with a small wheel, that small wheel, in order for you to reach center, let's just draw both sides of center down here, okay? In order for you to reach center and have a true, perfect hollow grind in here, okay, there is a point at which where you continue to go up with your grind. When you continue to go up with it, you're not getting any more hollow down here. What you're doing is you're just scooping this out more. And sometimes if you don't really have it right, what it'll do is that wheel will follow, your grind will follow your contact wheel, and you'll end up getting thinner back behind where the edge is, not necessarily behind the edge, because when we're talking about behind the edge, we're talking about like there is your let's say there's your grind, right? There's your grind, and then we have that secondary edge bevel, or just our edge bevel. This right here, this point right here, that's the behind the edge, okay? And that comes up into just a little ways, but that behind the edge thickness is a little different than the behind the edge or the center of the grind. So if you have a really small hollow grind wheel, if you have a small contact wheel, the only way to get a deeper grind without thinning out too much way up into here with your edge is to do what's called a semi-hollow grind. And the way you would do that is you would start down here low, okay? And you would start your grind low like this. And as you pick your grind up, as you raise your cheek, okay, what you're not doing is you're not continuing to really necessarily grind into the middle as you are to just raise the grind. So basically what you're doing is your free hand taking the place of a even bigger wheel, right? But what that's gonna give you is called a semi-hollow grind, and that's technically what mine are, is a semi-hollow, okay? What a semi-hollow is that it's somewhat flat down here closer to the edge, right? But then up at the top of the edge, it hollows out a whole bunch, right? Now, this can be achieved with a bigger wheel, but the grind isn't quite the same. It's just not quite the same as a semi-hollow grind, because with the semi-hollow grind, all right, one of the key things that people don't like about hollow grind, myself included, because this is why I choose the flat grinds to carry. Okay, if you have a true hollow grind, unless you have like a really big wheel, the hollow grind tends to curve out, and I don't like the way that they cut through things. I'm just not a fan of the drag that I get. See, with a flat grind, there's no resistance against the bevel unless the bevel is really steep or the spine is really thick. You know, with the flat grind, all your resistance is going to evenly come out. Sometimes it'll even come back behind, like let's just say you're cutting meat or something. It'll kind of like draw back in behind it, whereas a hollow grind will kind of peel out to the side, right? Well, kinda. And the thing is, like a deep hollow grind on a thicker blade or a thicker stock will have more drag when you're pushing straight through something, because it's not only trying to glide through it, but the hollow grind itself is trying to curve and peel and like open what you're trying to cut. Whereas a flat grind will kind of just glide through. Now, I know that not all hollow grinds are like that. Not all are created equal. But to me, the difference in feel between hollow grinds and flat grinds is, I mean, it's night and day. It really is. And I prefer a flat grind to a hollow grind. But if I'm going to have a hollow grind, it's got to be that big old deep semi-hollow. And so like if you were to stick this on my contact wheel and look down it this way, when you put it up against a contact wheel, it's going to meet almost all the way. But down here at the edge, or if you bring it to the edge, like the center of the wheel, right to the edge without like getting into it and twisting, I'll follow the angle and leave it straight. There'll be, I mean, it's almost not even enough to see, but a micro gap up in here. If you pull it all the way down to the cheek where the grind line is, there'll be a micro gap in here. And that's because I semi-hollow grind. And that's actually easier for me than it is to get like this super precise, perfect hollow grind, because it gives me a little bit more grind freedom. Now, when you start like turning and rotating with hollow grinds, it's really difficult, especially freehand, to get curves right. So going semi-hollow as you curve through it is just, most of the time they just come out that way anyway. But the thing is, once you really nail down the motion and the feel of the hollow grinds, they're easier than flat grinds all day, every day. I would rather hollow grind 100 knives than I would flat grind 50. And it's not that either of them are so much harder or easier. It's just that when you're hollow grinding against that contact wheel, it's like once you get a decent deep grind going, it's in a groove, and you can just flow through it so fast and so freely without really having to worry too much about missing your marks or going too high or going too low or anything like that. With flat grinds, you have no groove. You got nothing to go on, so it's all right here. You're having to constantly check back and forth between, you know, your high spot and your low spot, which are at your edge, your thinnest point, your thickest point. I will always prefer the convex edge, the belt edge, and it's the same kind of concept as the hollow grind versus flat grind kind of thing. So like we've had at my old place, we had a Tormach T8 and a T4. I think it's the T4 is the smaller, the little guy. And we had one of those, the T4 for a while, wore it out completely. And then got a T8 with the diamond, with that $400 diamond wheel, and they're so expensive. Thing is, you're sharpening directly on that wheel. I mean, right dead on it. And to me, I mean, it's not to me. If you look at it under microscope or even a magnifying glass, once you're grinding that edge directly onto the wheel, you're hollow grinding the edge. I mean, you're literally hollow grinding the edge. And with that, the T8, I think, has an 8-inch wheel, maybe a 10-inch wheel. But I mean, that's the same wheel that I'm hollow grinding on. And you now have a hollow edge. So what it'll do is it'll make the edge a lot more bitey. I mean, like the sharpness off of those Tormachs is, it's asinine. It's ridiculous how much you can get out of those, how much sharpness you can get out of them. And you know, I don't like hollow ground edges. Yes, it makes it a little more bitey, but it has notoriously made edges, even good edges, a little more prone to rolling. You can imagine why, because you're thinning it out even more. Even proper heat treats, because I like a thinner edge already, and then when you hollow grind the edge farther, then it just, yes, it makes it slicier, yes, it makes it bitier, but I want something, again, I want something that is going to last twice as long, not necessarily cut twice as deep. Because, so another thing with the Tormach edges, if you have to touch them up in the field with like a diamond sharpener, porcelain sharpeners, things like that, when you hollow grind and thin that edge out super, super thin, you are going to wear the edge out faster by hitting it with, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Well, I don't see it. So we'll just use this. This is just a porcelain rod, a ceramic rod, if you will. So I don't go crazy with like edge guides. I don't care what the thickness is, or I mean the angle. Of course, I have a little bias experience, my own stuff, obviously, but doing this right here will cut back faster a hollow stone Tormach ground edge rather than the convex edge, which is like freehanding them on the belt. It just makes the edge a little bit more robust. It's convex, but again, it's minorly convex. It's about the same as what the Tormach wheel is doing to them, maybe slightly even less of a radius, but it doesn't have to be as like microscopically precise in order for it to be all. The thing with the Tormach is if you've got like any thickness variance in your edge, you'll find out with that wheel. You will find out. And And it's not like I'm having issues with that, but it's easier to get a more perfectly uniform edge to me with the convex. So I mean, there's definitely several reasons, but I mean, you got it, Steven. It's double hollow grinding. I mean, a Tormach edge on a hollow grind, yes, it's going to be a sliced wizard. I don't care, because I would rather it be able to withstand dumb stuff longer, if that makes any sense. So now, I like to sharpen and touch up my knives with ceramic or porcelain if they need. Hey, there it is. I see it hiding over here. I just got one of these. Well, I just got like 4 of them at Blade Show. One of my close friends has one of these, an old one, sitting on his coffee table, and it's funny because he's a big time VGKC collector. I mean, he's got some really nice ones. I'll just say he's got some really special ones, and of course he has the advantage of being here as well. But I always used his sharpener at his place. I go see him once a week or sometimes even more, but I would always use this sharpener at his place, and this porcelain ceramic rod on one side with a diamond grit. It's probably about 180 or maybe even a 220 grit diamond side. It's really too coarse for much of any kind of fine touch-ups, because this rod, you can hear how much more life it has in it than, see, that one is shiny, and it's also been wore out a good bit. It's been used so much. That one I used to take to gun shows with me like in 2011, 2012. So I've had it a long time. But this one, and when you wear out, like when you slicken up one little spot, you can roll this rod and just bring a new one out. But this one, you can hear how fresh it is. That, to me, is all a knife really needs to get tuned up just right. Now, so referring back to that Tormach hollow edge, when you're using those little ceramic rods, right, what you're doing is you're cutting back and you're cutting back and you're cutting back and you're cutting back over time. And even if you've got, like this one has edge guides, and I don't know the degree, but that one looks about like 20-ish to 20. Well, this one's a little steeper, actually, it looks like. But, I mean, tell me, am I crazy? This one looks steeper than this. But those are edge guides, and you can set your knife on there. Yeah, this is about 20 to 22. And it's going to be hard for you guys to see. But I can see that my edge isn't fully sitting on there. It's just it's just like half of it. And that's why I really don't use the guides too much. But even if you didn't use, or even if you did use the guides, what you're going to be doing is you're eventually taking off enough steel to bring that edge, like you've got your convex edge, right, slightly curved, where you got your hollow edge is concaved, then you've got a convex edge. So what you're going to do with the convex edge is it's going to give you a little more time before it wears way back. All right, so with a hollow edge, what happens is you're going to end up wearing that half of the edge off faster, and then you're going to end up with a steeper edge, a whole lot steeper, like premature, too steep. So what's going to happen with these ceramic rods is over time you're going to steepen up your edge. Then it's going to need to be re-edged or re-profiled. You're going to need to re-profile the edge to where you want it. I like 17.5 degrees. And after you use this ceramic rod for 6 to 8 months, once, twice a week, then, and I mean, all we're doing is about 4 or 5 strokes on each side. And that's about all, I mean, really, that it ever is going to need for me. and I'm aggressive with mine. But once it gets to a little past the point of where what'll happen is it'll start feeling like it's not wanting to get sharp, and that's because you've rounded the edge back, and it's going to be harder to find that right angle. But what'll happen is as it rounds back, your angle to get it that sharpness is going to steepen a little more and a little more and a little more, and eventually you're just going to need a re-edge. That's what this is for when it needs to, or if let's say you tried to cut through a window or something, I don't know, and you need to fix your edge. That's what this diamond is for, and I'm not going to do it because my edge is really good, and you're taking the life off of it every time you sharpen it. But I mean, you got to weigh the age of a knife versus what's it really worth to you? Cost aside, how much do you like it? And but anyway, with the Tormach hollow edge, I find that you end up starting to get a premature bad angle to them a little sooner than I want. Now with the convex, you're still going to get there, but the thing is you're going to get there and have to take off less in order to get it right back than you would with the Tormach. See, that was the thing with the Tormach, is I would find, and I've still got knives sitting all over the place that had a Tormach edge to begin with. This one did, and this is an old knife that I made. See there, it says, well, you might not be able to see it. It says 2 Jakes. This is like 2012 era, 2013 era. This one's got some bullhorn. You can see that clear bullhorn, mosaic pins. Not an amazing looking knife. This, so yeah, you need a Rambler, dude. That's the ultimate duty and like light duty knife. And I wouldn't do. Like I've said with these, they are the most underrated knife that I make, and everybody that has them swears that they are the best knife on planet Earth, even though they might have other things. They don't care. The Rambler is the ticket. And it doesn't have the weight of an adventurer. And if I wasn't so used to carrying the weight of the adventurer, I would carry the Rambler. So I did for a while. I carried that test knife, the one that's etched all to hell and back. That's basically a Rambler. It's got slightly narrowed out handle. But anyway, this is an old hollow grind. And this one has been sharpened so much. This is my brother-in-law's knife, Andy. This one was about this long. And it was, you can see how much belly it's got into it now. And that's how much it's been sharpened. This thing it's foobarred. It needs help. And that's why he brought it to me, because the handle needs to be cleaned up and it's got some little micro crack. You know, honestly, this thing's done really good for as long as he's had it and as much as he's carried it. This is done pretty dang good. And this is how all the 2 Jakes knives were marked up until somewhere around like 2018 era, when we got a hot stamp for a hunting knife. Well, that depends on what you do while you're hunting, because that kind of changes too. But if you're going to be like skinning deer or just gutting them, field dressing, my favorite one would be the Tradition. This is the Junior Tradition. This will do just as good of a job. But the full-size Tradition is a skinning wizard. I've done a lot of deer with that blade, that particular blade shape. So I used to make the Tradition back in the Bloodline days. That's when I started that one. And hollow ground. They're the same blade, but just slightly different than they are now. But this is the Junior, and I feel like you could skin just about anything, in North America with a Tradition or a Tradition Junior. I know that some people might disagree, but in truth, if you can touch it with your finger on a hide, then you can touch it with a tiny little piece of a knife. It'll do the same thing. That's just the way it is. But anyhow, they age. This one has got a little dot in it. It's a dink, because we used to make these knives for someone else to sell. He was a master leathersmith. He might still be doing it. I'm not sure if he retired from it or not. His name is Dink, and he's out in Colorado. Pro Rodeo Originals. He's a very, very, very good leathersmith, and I stayed at his place there for a few nights. For 2 days, we were on our way back home. He's got a beautiful place out in Colorado. It's pretty neat out there. But Dink, that's these, we called them Dink blades, and I made a couple hundred of these actually. This one's in 52-100 hollow ground, 1/8 inch stock, and it just needs a cleanup job. This is the kind of sheath work. Yep, Dink Anderson. There you go. This is the kind of work that he did. So we used to buy sheaths from Dink, and this is his Sidewinder sheath. These sit, your belt goes through this way and then back through this way, and they kind of sit on your back like so at an angle, and it never hangs up on anything. They're pretty cool, but I never cared for the sheath. I just, it's just keyholed. If you don't like carrying this way, then you won't like this sheath. So 80 CRV2 is better. It's better. I've done so many knives in 52-100 and 01, but 52-100 specifically. So like all the knives that I did, 99% of the knives that I did with premium, those knives that I was grinding and heat treating for them, those were all 01. And after my bout with 01, I learned that I did not like it. I just didn't like the way that it performed. I don't like the way that it grinds. It heat treats at a lower temp too. And for whatever reason, I can't seem to find a consistent place with it. There's always seems to be like 2 or 3 out of 10 blades that I have problems with 01. Then after 01 is when I started dabbling and really working on 52-100. And I think 52-100 is a fantastic steel. But again, the tolerances are a little lower with 52-100 than 80 CRV2. So like I can go a couple hundred blades with 80 CRV2, and I might have a problem with 1 or 2 of them. However, I've done so many with them, and I've also figured out what it likes and what it doesn't like in terms of like all the grinding on 80 CRV2. Not all of it, but a solid 50%, 60% of the grinding on my 80 CRV2 is pre-heat treat. And you can do the same with 52-100, do the same with 01. Thing is, those problem blades, it's not like I did anything major to really have a definitive, well, this one was thicker or thinner, or this one was, you know, had a little notch, a little wave in the grind. Something was wrong. 80 CRV2 has been notoriously more consistent than any other carbon steel that I've ever tried. It's the most consistent, like fail-proof kind of steel. Now 52-100 is pretty dang good once you get it down. It has a tendency to crack. 52-100 has a tendency to crack, and sometimes it'll do minor cracks, and you really can't see them, and then sometimes your blade will snap. Been there, done that with 52-100. I've done it with 80 CRV2 also, but I did learn some tricks with the 80 CRV2. One of them being that anti-scale coating that I use. And not only this stuff, but the way that I apply it and where I build it up and leave it thin and whatnot. But 52-100, to me, it's not as stable as 80 CRV2. Because I'm able to really find that sweet spot with 80 CRV2. And again, you can find it with 52-100. I have a recipe on the kiln over there for 52-100 still. We didn't that much of it. User 4 is still a 52-100 setting. And I don't have any plans to use it. I just, it doesn't, it's like, it's a little more of a gummy grinding steel, kind of like D2. It's not at all like D2, but the way it grinds, the way it feels. Now D2 work hardens. D2 work hardens really bad. Like if you get up to 200 degrees and you're sitting there quenching it, like cooling it, it'll just rise, and it'll like almost do like a case hardening, surface hardening kind of thing, where it'll feel real like it'll like a knife that's somewhere around that 60 Rockwell mark will feel like it's at a 65 when you're grinding it, even though it's not. And that's why I stay away from D2. I hate grinding it. And another thing is it warps, and so then that means that most of your grinding is a little more safe after heat treat. But then, I mean, but then you've got so much grinding to do on a steel that doesn't grind worth a shit. So I just don't want to use it. But crunchy exterior, soft interior, good for pasties, bad for D2. That's how D2 feels when you're grinding it too. It'll surface harden, and you'll grind for a second, and then it'll kind of like break through. But then it goes from not hot to too hot really fast, and then you'll cool it off, and you'll go back at it, and it feels the same damn way. You know, if I get frustrated with it, I'm moving on. I don't care, because if I'm getting frustrated with it, even on something that I've got figured out, then it's just not right. ADCRV2 has been my golden ticket for that. But 52100, I will say that even though it's more prone to explosions, explosions like shatter and blow up into small pieces, doing abusive things, but you know, it's a ball bearing steel, and like a bearing race steel, so it's made for a high wear. It can hold an edge for a really long time. I have a couple of skinny knives at home made out of 52100, and some of them are like this, like Andy's knife. We made so many of these with 52100, and it's good stuff, and it's relatively corrosion resistant as well. It's not a stainless, but I mean, this knife doesn't get taken care of at all, and you can see what kind of condition it's in. Can't complain. But again, that stability and the consistent stability, it's just, I'm going to take this, even if it's not quite the best, if it's consistent, if I'm able to consistently achieve a really high level with it, or like it's just a good middle ground where it does everything great, then that's the stuff that I'm going to stick with. And that's why I'm still on ADCRV2, trying to decide whether to carry it or turn it into a safe queen. That's a tough one, and I'll tell you why. I have a hard time answering that, because the first round of cubs, the one that you got, is in 3/16. I'm not positive that I will do more of them in 3/16. When I originally did the cub, and I still have a good bit of them in a box in there. When I originally did them, I wanted to flat grind them, and I did, but the 3/16 and that inch wide blade, it's too thick to flat grind. I felt like it's too thick to flat grind, even though I did. And my opinion of things has changed. My opinion of how knives should be, or how my knives should be, has changed over the years. I've evolved. But, so I still have a bunch of these cub blades. But all the ones that I have left are like deeply stamped with BLK. Yeah. And I could get it off, but I'd have to surface grind them quite a bit. And if I was going to do that, then I'd end up taking them down to 5/32, which I think that is what I'm going to do with the next round of cubs. Is they're going to be 5/32. I may even do some 1/8 inch ones, and they're going to be flat ground because that's the way I wanted them. But I hollow ground these first ones because I thought it would suit that 3/16 steel a little more. And I think it definitely did because they're thin. They're only like, they're only like 12 or 15 behind the edge now. They're really thin. And I ground all of them and they all went real even. They were all about 10 thousandths at the edge. So yeah, I think that's what the Izula is, and that's kind of where I wanted to go contend with back then, was the Izula. I still think it's a contender, honestly. Even with the hollow grind. I mean, that thing is slicey, super slicey. It is damn sharp. So I don't know, maybe I'll do more in 3/16. If I do them in 3/16, they're going to be hollow ground, period, because I just think it's too wide, or not wide enough of a blade. Like the Adventure, yes, it's flat ground, but I mean, you can see it's like a 1/4 inch wider than the Cub, which gives it a lot more room to taper out to a better, more usable thickness at the edge, and just better geometry overall. Plus the hollow grind, it left a cheek and it looks so good. They are so good looking. So I don't know, Jeff. You might have one of only 16 or so. How many did I do? 17 or something like that. You might have one of only 17. You might not. I may end up doing it, but I would say more than likely I'll probably not do any more in 3/16 because I just felt like I wanted to do them in a thinner stock with a flat grind. It just makes it more like abuse resistant, if that makes any sense. So either way, I have one myself. I have one of those bronze ones, and I've been playing with it quite a bit at home, like carving with it. It's kind of hard to carve with because of that jimping on the back, and it's so short. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with the project from there, other than I want it to be flat ground eventually. Steels, heat treat recipes always supported thinner edges over that I'm on. So if you look at like tool steels and then high tensile strength, compression strength steels like 52100, 01, those are like die steels. There's one more, and I'm forgetting what it is now. But 52100 has commonly been used as like planer blade steel, and those have zero grind on the edge. They are zero ground, and they're actually ground all the way to razor sharp. No secondary edge. So I mean, the behind the edge thickness doesn't exist. There is no behind the edge thickness. There's just an edge. They'll do it, and you just think about a planer, like a big planer blade. A big planer blade, all like 18 and even like 24-inch planers blades is what I've seen, and they are in a drum that rotates. Unlike small homeowner, like non-commercial planers, they have like a one drum blade, and they've got a bunch of small cutters in it. And then there are still planers in existence with offset small disc blades or square blades that you can rotate. But some of the more common older ones have like stacked blades with zero ground, 52100, like 1/8 inch or even thinner stock. And they're about yay long, and they've got one bevel, and they're zero ground. They're in a rotation, and they spin at very high speed. And they also explode too. Like explode when something goes wrong. But there has always been certain steels that are just one side. So like kind of like a chisel zero grind. But I mean, you think about it, 1/8 inch stock with, and when we're talking like the blades are about 1.25 inches wide. Some of them I've seen are 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide, real wide. And they're wide like that because as you pull them out and sharpen them, you can still use them, and he'll obviously sharpen them too much. And we used to have connections for all that kind of stuff. I mean, like, they just kind of find you because when you go and do shows all over the place, people will come up like, hey, I've got a whole bunch of these sitting in my garage, or my grandpa did this, or I got a buddy that owns a factory or a sawmill, you want some saw blades, or, you know, and things like that just kind of fall into your lap when you're out and about, and showing off the knives that you make with that sort of thing. So the recipes have always been there for certain things, but it's definitely improved. The game has, without a doubt, improved. The thing is, the way that we are using those edges is now a lot different than it has ever been as well. So now we've got, I think a knife should be able to do some batoning, but I don't think that it's such an important task that if it won't baton because it's, I don't know, too damn thin or whatever, just not the right build, then it shouldn't do it, whatever. It's not that big of a deal to me. But what I'm saying is that the consumer world has been, I don't know if like manipulate or coerced is the right word. I'm not even sure that brainwashed is the right word either, but I feel like we've been a mindset. There's been a massive mindset shift in what a knife should be able to handle. When, if I took one of my grandpa's knives out of the kitchen, my grandpa was a butcher. His knives were nothing spectacular. If you guys know any butchers or like old school butchers, you know that the knives are nothing spectacular. In fact, some of them are, a lot of them were kind of rusty and crusty, and they didn't give a shit. They really just didn't give a shit. But if I tried to do something stupid like baton through a log with one of my grandpa's butcher knives, I'm positive he might have used it to kill me. So why is it now that is unacceptable if you don't baton through a damn 2x4 sideways, cross grain? Why is it more acceptable now than it was then? I feel like it's just people are too expecting of certain things. And that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be able to handle it. I understand the whole in a survival situation should be able to handle this and that. Yeah, sure. I mean, shit, fire. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself here. If I'm in a survival situation, and I mean a survival situation is I'm not going home because there's not a home. I have nowhere to go because there is nothing left. I don't have anybody but myself to take care of now. And all I've got is this fucking knife. I am in so much fucking trouble. I'm in so much dire straits right now with everything in the world that all I've got to survive this planet is this knife right here. Well, let me tell you something. I don't care if you've got this or don't have this. You are equally fucked. Either way, you're equally fucked. I'm sorry that it's just got to be said that way, but that's just the way it is. It's just that way. You're screwed no matter what. If you have nothing else, if you can't get to anything else, if you can't do anything else, the world is so screwed that all you have is this knife, and if you can't survive with batoning this through a wood, then you won't survive. That's sorry, but you're not going to survive with just that knife. That's all. That's just all there is to it. Especially if the world is in such a bad shape, that you can't find anything but that damn knife. So, I don't feel like we should be worried too much that it should handle all of these little micro ginormous tasks. Rather than they should do what a knife is intended to do and respected as the tool that it is. There you have it. So, I'm sorry for rambling so much, guys, and blapping. I've gotten more knives done. In fact, the entire Lamnia order minus the Cerakoting is done. Now all I've got to do is sharpen them. I got to Cerakote those other ones, sharpen them, and oh, dude, come on now. You can open Spam on the sidewalk. Come on. I want some peanut butter in my eggs, though. Peanut butter cups in your eggs. That's what we need. All right, y'all. I love all of you. Appreciate all your support. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.